Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our Matchmaker session today. I'm Juliana Weber, and I'm the project coordinator for CityLAB Hamilton. Matchmaker events are where we learn about the projects that have been submitted by our staff members at the city, and we work with our faculty members to try and find good student, faculty, and staff partnerships to tackle the projects. Today, we are joined by Jasleen Arora, Senior Project Manager with the Digital Innovation Office at the City of Hamilton. She's joining us today to discuss the potential ways the city can increase device accessibility and a recycling program for the City of Hamilton. So Jasleen, thank you for joining us. And if you could first tell us about your role at the city and how your work impacts Hamiltonians.
Awesome. Thank you, Juliana. So hi, everyone. My name is Jasleen, and I'm the Senior Project Manager in the Digital and Innovation Office at the City of Hamilton. So as part of the work that I do under smart cities and connected communities, I have a very keen interest in promoting digital equity in the city, along with interactions with some of our community stakeholders around reducing the digital divide. So that's my interest today, and the challenge that I'm bringing forward focuses on one of the aspects of this digital divide that I talked about. So I'll talk a little bit about the project. So during COVID-19, the pandemic, as we all know, further exacerbated the digital divide that many of our communities face. As school, work, and socializing, it has increasingly become reliant on the access to internet. So this digital divide that we talk about has really multiple components. The big one is the lack of available connectivity. And so this is when it comes to urban and rural areas. And then there's a second component to it, which is the access to devices and also like training and education for the users of those devices. And this is the component that I'm really looking forward to focusing on as part of this project. So at the City of Hamilton, we're looking for students who can focus on the lack of access to devices and explore the opportunities in the city for device repurposing for those that are in need. Along with that, I'm really looking forward to explore what challenges are being faced by the programs that are already in place, and if institutions around the city can be asked to consider alternative solutions to dispose their technology. So yeah, that's the project.
Oh, well, thanks for giving us that background. And I understand, so I know that the issue was clearly here before the pandemic, but the pandemic really kind of revealed the really lack of accessibility to devices that a lot of the families have in Hamilton. Do we have a sense of the statistics on what that insufficient access looks like, and how many people are affected by this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, the city doesn't have statistics on demand or a need for access to the devices in the broader community. And I'll tell you why. This data is really hard to collect. And this is really part of the challenge, right? Because we're using digital means to collect the data from those who are actually not connected to a device or even have a device, right? So you can imagine the challenges around trying to collect any kind of statistics or data around that. The only data that I think city might be able to get is from the Hamilton Public Library. As to use of your public use devices over the course of pandemic, but I think that data is also going to be skewed because the library closures and also social distancing and booking limitations. So I think that is also going to be skewed. So I think the short answer is no. I do want to mention that the gap was, there was some work that was done by the, prior to pandemic by Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. They moved the initiative of one-to-one device from secondary students to those in grade 4 to 8 at the elementary school as well. It was a program called Transforming Learning Everywhere, but it ended in June 2019. And the school board did provide some LTE connected iPads for short duration in 2020 academic school year. And the school did send as many devices as possible to home with the students. And I believe Mohawk also has a program where they procure a large number of devices, but there is little to no data available to quantify need or demand, to answer your question.
Okay, so those are two examples though of existing programs that, I mean, and that was, maybe timely for the school district to already kind of have that program in place, even if it ended, that they could tap back into maybe those resources during the pandemic. So it would be interesting to know how the school district handled device accessibility for school-age children when we were doing learning from home. Are there other municipalities that we can look to for innovative solutions or who have implemented device recycling and refurbishing programs?
Absolutely, and I'll be able to provide this information as part of the challenge to the students as well to help them with the background information. So there are multiple cities around the world and within North America, and they have very successful programs. So there is one under the Mayor's Fund for Philadelphia. It's called the PHL Donate Tech Program. It provides computers to families and people that are in need across Philadelphia. So the city partners with an electronic recycling company, and it allows individuals, they can mail in their devices, and there are local refurbishers as well. They help communities to recycle and refurbish the equipment safely and securely, because that's really important. I mean, you can mail your devices, request bulk pickup, or even like donate to the community device fund. So Philadelphia is doing running a very successful program. I know there's one at San Jose as well. It's called the San Jose Digital Inclusion Fund. They focus on three components as part of their digital inclusion, and access to devices is part of their overall program. And their aim is to ensure every citizen in San Jose has a working device. And then I think there are many other municipalities that have implemented solutions, but would probably require more web-based research. And this is where students would probably come in. I know there in Toronto, we have several programs, and there's Reboot Canada, there's Free Geek, there in Mississauga, there is RC Tech Outreach. So those are some of the programs that I'm aware that are running in the GTA area, but again, we would require more research.
Wow, I mean, there's a lot of material out there for students to investigate and see how we could replicate or be inspired by some of the programs that are already in existence. I know that one of the other parts of your challenge that you talk about is the training and education side of it, helping train and educate people on how to is it to use the devices? Have you given thought to where that would take place or how those would be delivered?
Absolutely. So my primary focus is going to be try and understand how we can get access to the devices. And then the second component, if time allows and if there's like a bonus, time available there, then we can look into some of the training and education pieces. I think this is something students can learn from their research as possible options and delivery methods via their primary and secondary research. I know, again, like the library delivers some programming and could inform inform students on what kind of programming support that they could offer. And that there are also courses at various schools within the city that could possibly partner with the community and the agencies. But I think the focus would be on trying to understand how we can get access to the devices for sure.
Absolutely. And how much of this is emphasized on the refurbishing, and does the city have the technological means to run a program like that, or is it also investigating what kind of resources the city needs to invest into to run a program?
Absolutely. So right now there are no programs in place. There used to be Green Byte, which I'm not sure if you're aware of, but they took many computers and that were essentially destined for landfill and turned them into like $1 million worth of refurbished computers. They also donated to many at-risk kids living in Hamilton community, but since September 2020, they have also shut down. And as part of the SUSTAIN program at McMaster, I think students also worked in collaboration with Green Byte and collected many computers at their campus. Right now, I'm aware that there's a pilot between McMaster and Empowerment Square So Empowerment Square is a local charitable organization. They empower newcomers, racialized and marginalized communities with tools and opportunities to thrive. And also like they distribute technology to the local facilities and children. So as part of that program, I know the McMaster is doing sort of like sanitation and cleaning of the laptops, and Empowerment Square is doing the refurbishment and redistribution, but the exact details are not known at this point, to myself anyway. So are there any current programs in place? No, and I think that's part of the scope to try and understand, you know, what are some of the existing programs and models that we can use to support the device collection, configuration, and distribution. And I can talk a bit more about student deliverables if you want to go into that.
Yeah, sure. If you could kind of give an idea of what you're hoping a student team could achieve, or what sort of recommendations that you're hoping comes out of this.
Absolutely. So, so I think primarily the expected student deliverables, like I mentioned, if they can figure out what the existing programs are in the city and models that are used to support the device collection, configuration and distributions, that's one. And then what the typical program cost would be to delivery, including like staffing models, licensing, space utilization, collection, refurbishment, distribution, all of that, if they can include that and find out more. As part of the research, if students can also maybe suggest Hamilton specific models based on interviews with existing subject matter experts. So what can and cannot work in Hamilton based on what's happening in the other cities. And then I think in some ways, depending on the course, there would be, I mean, you can split up the students, the groups in half, who would work on the device collection, logistics, prep, distribution, setup model, and the other students could focus on the training and education side if that kind of setup would work. But again, I think the focus needs to be on figuring out all the logistics and the setup pieces, and then if there's a capacity to train and educate the users as well.
Right. So this could be there could be more than one project here. Well,
absolutely.
Wow. And it kind of ties in nicely to some of the other CityLAB projects that we have on the go and in past semesters and current semesters about bridging the digital divide, and how do we bring accessible Wi-Fi to our community and to families and homes that don't necessarily have that access in public parks and in public hubs. So it's nice to know that there's a lot of interest in bridging the digital divide, and that even with COVID-19, that's kind of pushed it further on the agenda. So thank you for joining us today, Jasleen. It's been wonderful to talk with you, and thanks again for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.